Hey, welcome to the American Blues podcast. This is your host, Terry Lee. This is the place for all Chelsea related stuff, especially any match reviews coming from one of the biggest Chelsea fans in the US. No real intro today. Let's just get straight into it. Liverpool versus Chelsea today. Absolutely embarrassing performance. Embarrassing. Not surprised given how good Liverpool are right now, being that they're at the top of the table. And Klopp just announcing that he's leaving, giving them an extra boost, and they're at home, one of the hardest places to play in the entire league. But I did expect a lot more from this Chelsea team, so we'll get right into that. So, first things first, everyone's going to talk about, did Chelsea deserve any penalties? I would say maybe, but did it matter? Absolutely not. You know, the way we performed today, we looked like a Premier League team playing against a championship level team. And guess what? We were not the Premier League team. So let's talk about Gallagher's first challenge against Van Dijk, where he ran into the box. Van Dijk moved his knee. They ran into each other. He fell over. Could that have been a penalty on a different day? Maybe. Was that enough for me? No. Was it enough for VAR to overturn? Absolutely not. It really looked like a 50-50 where they both ran into each other and Gallagher just fell over, mainly because his first touch was terrible. And we'll get back into that. He had many of those today. And then the second one was Nkunku. Was that a penalty? Not in any way. Van Dijk barely tapped him from behind and he fell over rolling. That's not a penalty in my book. And again, did it matter? Would we have won this game if we had gotten 2 penalties? No, because Liverpool had more than enough chances and they probably should have scored more than just 4 goals. I think they probably should have had easily 6 or 7. Okay, let's go over the game real quick and talk about the goals. Number 1, the first goal was by Diego Jota. I think that was actually a pretty lucky goal. You know, it did start with a Chilwell mistake. Sure, he was trying to bomb on him. He lost the ball. That's going to happen. Slightly disappointing, but it happened. Gave the ball away. Jota got the ball. Now, should he have scored from that position? Absolutely not. He had 2 defenders on him, and Thiago actually hit the ball, but it happened to get a lucky bounce off the ground and then back onto his chest and went through. But Badiashile, who's probably twice as big as Jota, should never have let him be able to take that shot. So that's absolute no-no, in my opinion. But we'll talk about Badiashile in a little bit. Second goal, Bradley. Number 1, what a awesome goal for a young player to score. I think he's only 20. This is his maybe 3rd game for Liverpool, and he scores that in front of his home crowd. Amazing. But it sucks that it came at our expense. Again, the problem was in our midfield. Both Caicedo and Enzo were in the wrong position. Caicedo was nowhere to intercept the ball, and then Enzo was just really weak against McAllister and let him pull off a pass. And then because Chilwell and I forgot whoever he was, I think it was maybe Jota, they were tangled with each other and fell over. Also another 50-50 challenge. Then it was up to Disasi to try to cover Bradley, who obviously he can't because Disasi has absolutely no speed. And Bradley actually scored from a pretty good shot. Now, will some people want to blame Petrovic? Maybe he was slightly out of position for that shot. I'm going to say no. I just think that was the only shot he could have taken from that angle, and he hit it hard. He hit it low to the opposite corner, and it's just a great goal. So good play to Bradley. Third goal, absolutely infuriating. It was a Szoboszlai goal, but it started with Van Dijk on the ball, one of the best passers of the ball in the entire league, and Sterling doesn't mark him, just walks up to him. Van Dijk looks up and sees Bradley in an acre of space on the right side. First time hit, perfect pass. Now, is Badiashile a left back? No. But even as a center back, he should know to sprint out to the side and stop that cross. He didn't sprint. He just jogged next to him. Great cross came in. And then Thiago Silva and Disasi, poor positioning. Thiago tried to jumped under it. That is his fault. He didn't read the flight of the ball well enough. But then Disasi didn't cover him. And of course, Dominic just was in between them, open. Just bad defending in every phase of play, from the attack to out wide to defending. Yeah, that goal is infuriating and should never happen. And then the final one, Luis Diaz on Badiashile. Look, I think Badiashile is probably one of our worst players today. Even in center back, he looked extremely uncomfortable. And I'm not sure if that's because of his recent injuries or lack of form. He hasn't been playing well, but he has dropped off the absolute cliff this season. And the way he jogged back into the middle of the box is unacceptable. You cannot be a central defender and have a winger out wide sprint down the side and you're looking at them and they're sprinting in front of you. You're not keeping with them in line. And because of that, the player behind you runs in and scores. That's absolutely unacceptable. I understand we were already losing 3-1 at that point, but I don't care if we're losing 20-1. That kind of stuff cannot happen. And Poch has got to cut that out of the defense. Now, our one goal in Nkuku, fantastic goal. We've talked about how we don't really have anybody clinical up front. I think Nkuku is actually clinical. He's only played 3 games for us this season, and he scored in 2 of them, and 2 pretty good goals, especially the one today. He did had some other issues, but I think it was more team-wise than actual individual errors on his part, and he scored a great goal. So good on him. Now, let's talk about our biggest issues today, which was our midfield and defense, which is, I think, what is actually the crux of our issue throughout this entire season. We can get into the fact that we had to play Cole Palmer as a false 9 again because Jackson didn't make it back in time, and Broya is just so useless currently that it was better to not have a striker than have one. Fine. I mean, I can't really blame Pochettino for that. But we just don't have any good options up in 9 right now, so might as well play Cole Palmer. But that did lead to several issues. Cole Palmer is not a striker. He's not a target man. He's not going to stand up there and take long passes. He's not going to run in behind. That's not his job. What his job is to find space. Our midfield, mainly Caicedo, Enzo, Gallagher, those 3, I'm not sure what's happened this season. They seem to have no communication with each other in any way. And our problem becomes that when the ball is in defense or back in goalie, we played this really, really low block where we try to pass it out from behind. And passing it out from behind depends on movement between your defenders and midfielders in attack. And we don't have that kind of movement. Number one, we don't have anyone other than Thiago Silva who can hit a good pass long over top for someone to run onto. And so each time that was attempted today led to absolutely nothing. That being said, we also don't really have anybody to aim for. Sterling's really short, easily gets the ball taken off of him in the air. And then on the other side, Madueke was absolutely nowhere today to be seen. And so what are our options? Well, then we could play through the midfield, which we generally are absolutely allergic to playing through midfield. I'm not sure why every time either Enzo or Caicedo get the ball, they're facing goal and their first touch isn't to turn around and see what's ahead. Their first touch is always to go back to another defender. So we keep pinging it between defense in this horseshoe pattern, which gets us nowhere. And then we hit it to the middle and then hit it back and hit it to the middle, hit it back. And then whenever someone tries to put a slightly longer pass in, we lose the ball. And time again in that first half, we lost the ball like that. Second issue, the midfield was so bad that Cole Palmer had to run back repeatedly and was the only person who was able to get the ball, control it, and turn around and try to either make a run or make a pass. Now, he can't do everything himself. He cannot be an 8, a 6, a 9, a false 9 out wide, all in one person. That's not possible. I think he ran himself absolutely ragged today trying to find space. And I genuinely think if we are to get better, we have to base a team around him, and we have to teach our midfielders how to play better through the middle. Now, the other issue with how we started is because of injuries. We had Chilwell on one side, which is great. Fantastic. He actually did overlap with Sterling pretty well on a few runs. They just, it's his second game back from another major injury. So I can't really blame Chilwell all that much. He did seem a little bit rusty today, but at least he tried. He at least made runs with Sterling, tried to open up space. And we actually had, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 decent crosses to the box, one of which Gallagher took that bad touch on and we didn't get the penalty. And then the second one, Gallagher just stood with the ball and then slipped over himself like a ghost knocked him over. Those 2 chances could have been good goal scoring chances, but they led to absolutely nothing. And that's not Sterling or Chilwell's fault. They did the part. They combined on the wide part and put a decent cross in, and it's up to whoever's receiving that pass to actually control the ball or to take a shot and not just try to go for a really soft penalty or just fall over on the ball. So that was very disappointing to see. And then the other issue is out right with Madueke. Madueke is a player that he's young, he's raw, he can dribble, but his dribbling pattern is always to come inside. And just so happens today, that's where Cole Palmer is. Palmer's in that in between line space where he's between midfield and attack, and his job is to try to link up. Well, whenever he passed that out to Madueke would immediately try to move back inside, run into traffic, and either lose the ball or hit a really, really poor pass and give the ball away. Now, would Disasi or an actual right back have helped like Malagusto? Maybe, to free up some space on the outside, draw a defender out so maybe Madueke has a little bit room to do his dribbling. Possibly. But I also understand we can't keep using players who are just back from injury right away and expecting them to play 90 minutes because that's how we end up in this position in the first place with most of our important players injured. So, that was an issue, but that's kind of been an issue this whole season. We seem to only have one side of the field where we can link up and attack from. And it's not that hard to figure out which side based on our team selection. Now, the other issue is that we just weren't up for it today. We have started several games pretty slow this season, which is definitely on the manager, and that's a big problem. But today, we just weren't in it. None of our players sprinted like Liverpool players. We were slow to every second ball. We had horrible first touches. Even when we had good first touches, we were still slow enough looking up or looking for a pass that we would immediately lose the ball again from someone behind them. Okay, let's go on to the second half. Now, first half was so bad that Poch actually made 3 changes at halftime, which is incredible. I don't think I've seen him do that yet this season. So he took off Madueke, he took off Chilwell, which was really confusing unless he was just worried about his fitness, which I understand since Chilwell is injury prone. And he took off Conor Gallagher for Nkuku. Now, I was pretty positive about these changes except for Mudryk, and we'll get on him in a little bit because he was, for multiple games now, beyond useless and completely lost. Again, with horrible runs and horrible touches and horrible passing. But to their credit, I think those new players did give a little bit of energy to the team. At least we had players who were able to receive the ball, put some passes together, and it did free up Palmer a lot on the right side to be able to get the ball, look up, and actually make some runs up the field, which Gallagher was just not having it today. He was not part of that in any way. And so we did play a little bit better, but again, my main issue with Mudryk, and I know there's a lot of Mudryk fans out there who think he just needs more time. He's dynamic. He's one of our only players who can make a play happen. I don't think so. I actually think Mudryk has a good athlete in him, but he has no brain for this sport. I'm not sure what kind of coachings he's had growing up, or maybe he hasn't had very much coaching and they just told him to just dribble and run past your player and then think about something else, because frequently he's never in the right position. The one time that he was in the right position today and we should have gotten a goal back, he blasted with his left foot over the bar and he never looked comfortable. He was always leaning back. He had time to take a touch and he didn't take a touch, and that should have been a goal. And that actually, I think, would have changed the game significantly, especially if we scored that. And then Cuckoo scored a second, and now we're down 2-3 and it's game on. But he didn't. All he did was take an incredible chance and then sky it. And apart from that, he kept running straight into defenders or just easy passes, easy 5 to 10 yard passes. He would constantly misplace and give the ball away. I just don't have much good to say about Mudryk apart from that one fluke goal that he had earlier in the season. I think it was against Arsenal. He hit it from the left side and he pretended like he meant it, but he 100% did not mean it. I actually think he needs to go on loan. He needs to go on loan to a championship level team where he's allowed to make mistakes. He's allowed to sit down, watch coaching videos, watch and learn exactly what his winger position is supposed to be, because he's just not doing it. He's not doing it. And we cannot keep playing him in games because he's honestly more of a liability than not. Now, I will say, I think the only player that had two players that had decent games, which was Cole Palmer and Petrovic. Petrovic absolutely saved us in that first half. And I think he's great. He's one of the only good things that the recruiting team has found. And, my wife, who's a big MLS fan, has always said, hey, watch out for him. He was really good when he was on the Revolution. So, and I And I see it. Whenever Sanchez is fit, I don't want to see him on the team again, unless Petrovic makes some crazy mistakes multiple games in a row. He's been solid at the back. He saves what he can save. He even pulled off some really good low ground saves today that were hard. And he does fill me with a sense of calm. And I think he makes the defenders calm too. But let's talk about how we can go forward. Like, what is something that we need to do? So number one, I think we need a striker. I think everyone on the planet knows that we need a striker. So that's not a big deal. Hopefully they'll get Osimhen or whoever else in the summer, and that'll start to solve that. But I think the bigger issue is, I am a big fan of Poch. I think he's the right manager for us. And the problem with us is we have thrown together an entire team and a half of young, inexperienced players who have no chemistry together and expect them to develop patterns and play immediately. And that was never going to happen. And now you're kind of seeing the results of it. I do think the last few games we have started to get a little bit better and against poor opposition. But when we play an actual team like Liverpool, who's well organized, motivated, willing to run, willing to put in that extra little bit of work to get that extra yard and fight for each other, we completely fall apart. We are still a team that's very dependent on individual talent and individual plays, and that's just not it. This is not a individual sport. It's a team sport. Teams will always beat an individual. Even if you're Messi or Ronaldo, you still need a team around you. Even in their prime, they needed teams around them to win games consistently. So if you look at Liverpool, they have a young 20-year-old player, Bradley, who's from all accounts amazing. He's extremely talented. He's fast. He works hard, but they don't have a team of 11 Bradleys all trying to play together at the same time all at once. No, he's been with their academy. He's been training with the first team. He's been learning from Klopp for probably a very long time. And then now he's gotten his chance and he knows exactly what he needs to do. Our players don't know what they need to do. And I think that is on the manager. And I think the only way out of this hole is better management. I am so fed up seeing our defenders pass the ball in a horseshoe pattern back and forth, look up, see no one making movements, see the midfield halfway up the field holding their hands up, looking at each other, and then they just look around, hold up their arms, and then pass to the next defender and recycle and rinse and repeat. I'm also tired of seeing the ball go through Enzo or Caicedo when they're facing our goal, and then they knock it immediately back to defender because no one else is making runs, or maybe it's the manager that's telling them, hey, don't risk turning with the ball and running up. Try to pass your way out of defense. And I think this lack of pattern of play from back to front is 100% on a manager. If you look at Caicedo with Brighton, his thing was to get the ball under pressure in the middle, spin, and hit a great first time pass to the attack. I don't see Caicedo doing that for us in any way. I see Enzo doing that sometimes, but really I see Palmer doing that. And Palmer has to run back 40 yards from his false nine position to just get the ball from defense, turn around and do something that both Enzo and Caicedo should be doing. That's big issue number one. And like I said, I think that is down to Pochettino. And sure, it's his first season. It's going to take time for these young players to gel. But if by second season there's still no patterns of play, then I'm going to heavily start questioning whatever they're learning and training. Now, the other big issue is I think this is a perfect game where you see the good and bad of relying so heavily on Thiago Silva. I love Thiago Silva. I think he's been an absolute class signing. And I actually wanted him for Chelsea years ago. And I couldn't have been happier that he came and finally won that Champions League that he's deserved. But in a game like today, where we have Liverpool players who are all fast and we are trying to hold a high line, you could even see anytime a ball was hit over the top, Thiago would immediately drop back and Badiashile or Disasi were not on the same wavelength of him because they were trying to hold their high line. That doesn't work. We can't play offside traps with one 39-year-old defender. That doesn't work. And I think today we really see why we missed someone like Colwell, who is faster and good on the ball, playing alongside Thiago. And with that, I think I've been really harsh on Disasi this year. I didn't rate him at all for a long time. I actually think he's gone much better in the last 3 to 4 games. He showed better passing range. He showed better defensive positioning, but the same cannot be said about Badiashile. Like I said earlier, I have no idea what's happened to Badiashile this season. But usually, when a player has dropped off a cliff like that, it's either because of a really bad injury or really bad management. And I'm really hoping that it's more injury and lack of game time than management, because I don't think there's a single game this season where I've seen him and gone, yeah, this is the player that I thought would be the future of our defense, like I thought last season. Last season he was strong, he was decisive, he was a good passer, good dribbler. This season, he's none of those. He's not fast. He's not in the right position. He doesn't sprint. And most importantly, when he dribbles, he seems so unsure of himself that he constantly makes mistakes and gives away the ball. That's been very, very worrisome to see. I think it's an absolute embarrassment how much money we've spent on defenders. And still, we're talking about possibly needing 2 new defenders. That's not okay. And then with our attack, I mean, Sterling, I think it is what he is. He can be the difference in certain games when he feels like it, when he feels like he needs to run and dribble. And in other games, his whole game is dependent on stopping and then beating the defender. And when that doesn't work, he doesn't really have much else. And sometimes he'll make extremely selfish decisions and try to take a shot whenever he should be passing. And we've seen that quite a few times, and it's cost us quite a few points this season. But he's not going to change at his point. He's already past his prime, so he is what he is. And unfortunately, I think he is one of those players where we can't really afford to not play him. Now, Madueke, I think, has showed some games where he's been okay. So showed some entry, showed some good dribbles and potential goal scoring talent. But he is still very young and very raw. I don't think we should be relying on him. I think Palmer should be in that position if we just had a number 9 that could act like a 9 and score some goals. Now, is that going to be Nkunku? I don't think so. I don't think Nkunku's a striker either, but I do think Nkunku is probably more clinical than almost anybody else on the team, maybe save for Cole Palmer. And Mudryk, I just think he needs to go. I think he needs to go on loan, learn the game, come back, mix some football intelligence with speed, and then I think he could actually be an asset to the team, because right now all I see him is a liability. And it's not just me. If you look at the other players on the pitch, even when they're running with the ball, like Cole Palmer today, Enzo today, they could clearly see that Mudryk is open and they don't pass to him. That's a big problem when the players on the field know that they can't trust a player to keep the ball, that if they pass to him, it's going to go absolutely nowhere. That's not a good thing. And I don't care how much more game time he gets. I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. So overall, I think today was an absolute horrific performance, although not a surprise. Do I think this is the end of the season and the Roland Poch should be sacked? Absolutely not. This is a high-flying Liverpool team at the top of the league who are most likely going to end up winning some type of silverware this season. And that is not a team that we need to be comparing ourselves against right now. But I do think we need better management. We have to have better management in terms of teaching our midfielders how to play together and how to progress the ball instead of just knocking it back to defenders. And I think in summer, if we don't get a truly proven striker like a Victor Osimhen, and I would have loved Benzema for the next 6 months too, just someone who is experienced up front, who can help link up play and can help score a goal when the chance is there. I think those things would make this team much, much, much better, because there are games where we create a lot of chances, we just don't score the goals. And I'd rather see a team that creates chances, because at least there's a hope for the future, instead of a team that creates absolutely nothing. So hopefully the next game goes better than this one, and then stay tuned for more Chelsea content. Comment, like, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. If you disagree, let me know. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do it. Peace.